Hey everyone. Hello. I'm Alia, and welcome to the second episode of Girl Living. So last week I spoke a little bit about New Year's resolution and gave a bit of introduction on what I'm doing here, why I'm doing it, and basically I'm just here to talk about different topics and things that I can relate to. It could be super random, but I think it will mostly revolve around me living in London and just living and surviving as a girl, basically. I'm just a girl. So, yeah, today I came a little bit more prepared. The title is going to be Do It and Try Something New and Reality Check. That's what I've got written down here in my notes. Basically, I'm just going to talk about what my career is like and how I got here, which is not very far, but for context, I wasn't studying the same thing as what I'm doing now as my job. And I feel like there's already a lot of resources out there where people speak about their personal experiences. But, let's just add one more to the mix. Maybe somebody will find this helpful. So yeah, I'll give a little bit of context of my background, like what I was doing before. So I did 4 years of university, secondary school, went to university, did bachelor's degree in architecture. Why did I do architecture? To be fair, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have like a specific interest, and I figured architecture was that one degree that does everything. So a bit of science, a bit of art, and I suppose it helps that my father is a civil engineer. And then after university, I worked for a year in an architecture firm. And this was back in Malaysia. I'm from Malaysia, so that's where I did my undergrad, school, everything. And then very luckily got an opportunity to further my studies here in the UK. So I moved to the UK in 2020. So that was still during the midst of COVID. There were still lockdowns happening back home. There were still lockdowns happening in the UK. And I moved like in September 2020. At that point, I kind of felt like, was I doing the right thing? Because I was letting go of, a good job. And I felt like a lot of other people were trying to secure their jobs or keep their jobs. And there I was letting it go for something that I wasn't even sure I was going to do. I liked architecture and that was the right thing to do. You've done the degree, then you do your part 2, and then you do your part 3 next and you become an architect. So to be honest, I suppose I didn't really know where I was going, but I knew like that was the right thing to do. Then I came to the UK, studied in Oxford Brookes. I met a lot of lovely people there. I've still got quite a few of my friends who I hang out with till this day that I met in Brookes. It was a really nice course. I had really lovely tutors. It was a really nice campus, really nice student accommodation. I was very lucky that I had really good flatmates. And you need that during the pandemic, especially in my situation, it was quite tough, which I feel like a lot of people can relate to because I came to the UK and there wasn't really an opportunity for me to just go back as frequently as I wanted to. In fact, I didn't go back to Malaysia until 3 years after I moved here. Anyway, not important, but yeah, I did my part 2 in Brookes and I met really good tutors there who I feel like they were quite pivotal when it comes to my career change. So during the final year, when you do your final submissions and then you have to do your, Viva, when you have to speak about your project, I remember that there were a few people that I spoke to. I remember everybody in my cohort, everybody was talking about, getting the part 2 job. Because I'm from Malaysia, you have to have a student visa or a work visa or a partner visa, basically a visa to stay longer in the country. And when I was there studying, I still had the opportunity to get on the graduate visa for another 2 years to look for a job. So very lucky to have that opportunity. But I just remember during that time when I was graduating, before I was graduating, everybody was worrying about, oh, which firm are you going to work with? How's it going with your portfolio? And I remember myself being like, I don't really want to do architecture. I don't really want to think about doing a part two job. To be completely honest with you, I was really feeling this way when I was working in my part one role back home. I just never felt like it was right. And I loved architecture, don't get me wrong. I loved the degree. I loved the idea of it. I loved everything about it. Maybe my experience in my firm wasn't really positive or not what I was expecting. And I mainly just felt like life is too short for me to work on something that I wasn't passionate about. And with architecture, it's such a tedious and long journey. I might be wrong about this because clearly I haven't worked that much, but at least from what I knew back then and what I know now, even with the 7 years experience, so counting in your undergrad and your master's and your work experience, even with 7 years, 8 years, you could get the same pay as somebody who's fresh out of university. At least that's what I knew back then and what I know now. So that was my personal experience. So at that point, I was telling my tutor, like, I don't think I want to do architecture. And I remember him telling me, you know, find something that pays your bills, but always experiment or always explore because you never know what you're going to find. And I spoke to somebody else who came for the presentation or the Viva, can't remember what it's called now, who was on the panel, and I was honest with her. And she said, you know, some of the best designers that I know are the ones who branched out. And I could always come back to architecture if I really want to. If I put my mind to it, there's always a way back. So from that moment on, after I graduated, I did a bit of traveling. Not much, to be honest. I did a bit of traveling. And when I came back, I was like, I'm going to move to London. I don't have a job lined up. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I know that London is going to be a place of opportunities and I'm going to find it. So that's what I did. I graduated, did a bit of traveling. I just moved to London without anything, with just very little savings, just enough to pay for deposit. If you know London, you know, just like any other big cities, how hard and difficult it is to secure or get a place, especially when you just graduated and you don't have a job. They're always asking for a guarantor, and you know, your salary has to be a minimum of this and that, and it's just tough. I remember wanted to move in with my friends, and it was just really difficult. It was a difficult time. I ended up renting with a family. I lived with a landlord, which is really nice. They had a cat, and it was really cute. But that was what I needed at that time. That was what I was able to afford. Then I worked in Starbucks for like 2 months. I've always wanted to see. When I was growing up in Malaysia, Starbucks was my favorite place to go and do my assignments or to study. Sit with my laptop, you know, do the whole cafe thing. Like, that was my life. I loved doing that. But I've always wanted to know what it's like to be a barista. Obviously, you know, you might speak to another barista who works in a proper cafe and they would be like, that does not make you a barista. But that's fine. I tried learning how to make coffee. I really love frappes, Java chip frappuccino. I don't drink Starbucks anymore. I try not to, but that was my favorite drink. And yeah, did that for 2 months. My first ever like F&B job. And then I was very lucky because I got referred to a really nice shop / cafe / design studio in Hackney. I got referred to by my previous boss that I worked with in Oxford. This is a long story, guys. But basically, when I was studying in Brookes, I used to work in this really lovely shop that reminded me of Mr. Megorium's Emporium. I can't remember the name of the movie, but that was the vibe it was giving me. It was a game shop. We were selling board games, chess, backgammon, traditional games, modern games, all sorts. Not video games though. Anyway, long story short, I think my boss then, she wasn't fond over the fact that I was working in Starbucks, and she knew like I wanted to, try something new. So she recommended me to Hidden Planet, which was the next shop that I worked in. And during that time when I worked in Starbucks and when I was doing retail job, at the same time, I was attending, hackathons. I was attending talks, women's activity. There's this group on Facebook called London Lonely Girls Club. And I made a post on there saying like, oh, I'm looking for people to socialize with. This is what I want to do. My background's in architecture and I'm trying to branch into something else. At that point, it was going to be UX, UI. I mean, from physical to digital. I feel like you can easily make connections there. Or at least that's what I thought. I've learned over time then it's not as simple as it sounds. And, when something seems to be like a low barrier career, it means that there's really high competition. And I'm not that great. I don't think digital design is my forte. I feel like I'm more of a generalist, so I don't have a niche. And I feel like something like UX and UI, you really have to be good at design and you really need to have the eye for it. And I wasn't confident, but I tried. I tried to understand what it's all about. And then, so when I made that post on London Lonely Girls Club, I think somebody reached out to me. I can't remember what it was, but basically it was they do like a meetup for UX researchers. So I was in this cafe and I sat with the table of UX researchers from Google, Facebook, just having coffee, and it was great. And that's the reason why I love London. There's opportunities for everyone. There are all kinds of things that you can do if you look for it. And I was very lucky because there were so many free events, especially at this time. I think there was a lot of encouragement for women and girls to join or work in tech. I had loads of opportunities to join these things, which is really great because I was making friends, making connections. I mean, I say friends, but that's a whole different topic when it comes to London. But yeah, I was making connections, I was getting exposure, understanding, really having an understanding of this whole tech world. At the same time, in the day, I was working my day job. After doing all of that, I think at some point I needed, it felt like the right time to move houses, moving with my friend finally. We tried the first time, it didn't work out, and we tried again, and I'm very grateful now I'm living with her. But at the same time, moving means I needed something more, and at that point, I also needed to look for something else that could give me a visa sponsorship. So I think I worked Starbucks 2 years and then Hidden Planet for 10 months or a year, roughly so. And alhamdulillah, I managed to get a job. I think I was applying left and right for all kinds of things. And it was a tough time because it felt like if I didn't get a job then, if I wanted to change careers, I felt like a year is a good amount of time to prove to my employer that I'm worth the sponsorship, the hassle of having a visa sponsorship. So around that time, I think it was June or July, I felt like, I'm not getting a job. I'm not going to get a job that is not architecture, and I don't want to go back to architecture. And it felt like an impossible situation. I'd like to think that, all those time that I invested in attending all those events led me to getting the job that I'm working for right now. And to me, it was a miracle. I have to say, maybe, thanks to my mom and my family, maybe they were praying for me. But it was the dream job. I got literally exactly what I needed then and what I still need now. So yeah, then that's where I'm working right now. I'm currently a CRM executive. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know what it was back then. I applied for the job on Otta. I think they're called Welcome to the Jungle. I think that's what they're called now, but basically they're known for having tech jobs that offer sponsorships. And yeah, that's where I applied. And then now I'm here. That was very long. I suppose the next thing that I wanted to talk about was why did I do it? Why did I leave architecture? I spoke earlier about wanting to try something new, but I feel like a big part of it was also on my insecurity. I think I wasn't confident that if I were to continue on, that I was going to be a good architect, or if I was going to feel happy with what I was doing. I felt like I could be so much better at something else, although I didn't know what that something else was going to be. But I have to admit, I think a big part of it was to do with my insecurity. I wasn't very good at technical drawings. That's what I felt. I felt like I just wasn't good at it. And I was like, I need to find something that will make me happier, where I can feel that satisfaction quicker. Because rather than working on a 5-year-long project, I just wanted to get on something that gives me the high of success in a shorter time frame. So that was one of the reasons why. And one of the things that was really happening at that point was obviously everybody, your friends, they're graduating at the same time. You're doing this thing where you're working low-paying jobs for somebody who graduated from masters. Let's just put it that way. And your friends or people around you are always like, oh, when are you going to move out? When are you going to, find a better place to live in? When are you going to get a new job? Are you applying? Gosh, there was so much pressure coming from all directions. And I at that point, I just needed to convince me that I had a plan and the plan was going to work out. And that me sacrificing the salary now is going to take me further, and that's still what I'm doing now. I feel like I've costed myself a couple of years, but it's okay because it's going to take me to where I need to be. And why do I say that is because now, even though I'm working as a CRM exec, I'm working in a really big company. It's a really, really, really lovely company. I couldn't ask for something better. It's, the culture is all about, yes, obviously doing your job is a priority. Doing a good job is a priority. But I've got such a lovely team. I have the best manager. And I really love how the company supports growth. And also they sponsored my visa, which really came as a surprise for me because CRM exec, I'm basically working in marketing. And, they could have just hired anybody else. But I've been given this opportunity that I'm really grateful for, and I'm really trying to make the most out of it. And speaking about growth, I try not to talk too much about it, but I do speak on what I want to do, what I plan on doing in the future, and things that I want to explore. And then I get feedback and ideas and suggestions. So one of it was to do a secondment, and I put it forward to my manager just to see if there was any way I could do it. And yeah, it happened. She really pushed for it. And now I get to learn from professionals who are doing the role that I want to go in. So I said earlier about UX and UI, and then I figured that, maybe product management is something more suited for me, because in architecture, they teach you the skills to work with different stakeholders, and it involves a lot about business. And, I think you can see the parallels in it, where you're building something, you will have to work with the designers, you have to work with the engineers, and it's just like from physical to digital. Obviously, there's so much to learn. There's so much information that a product manager has to know. Now I really get to see it. With the secondment, I get to shadow a really great PM in my company who is working on the app. And I voiced this before that I'm really interested in apps, and that's what I do in hackathons and stuff. So it's really, if you don't ask, you don't get. But also it's a very fine line between knowing your place and putting in a request. I don't know. I feel like this is something that I struggle with. I never know if I'm asking for too much. But I'm really grateful that so far what I've asked for, I've managed to get it. And secondment, I didn't even know what a secondment was. The first time that I heard this word was last year, like end of last year. And it's a great way to learn from professionals. It's literally getting those one-to-ones and having those opportunity to ask questions and really see the world and shadow the meetings and actually see in person what the job is like. I feel like all those times that I've watched videos or I've done reading, none of it compares to what I'm learning right now in person. And I feel like it's a really great way to understand where you're going if you plan on changing your career. Also, caveat, like, I feel like this whole conversation is relevant to people who probably studied or worked in a very straight or linear industry. For example, part 1, part 2, part 3, architect. Or if you learn medicine, you become a doctor, or you become a lawyer, you know, those kind of careers, because it's so straightforward. You know where you're going to go at the end point. You know that's, you know, even if you weren't sure, maybe you've got a path written for you. Whereas if you're doing like a career where it's a bit more flexible, then this whole conversation is probably completely irrelevant for you. But having said that, I feel like secondment is amazing. To me, it feels like I am on an internship while doing my full-time job. I think there's a lot of different types of secondments, or some people do it like they work in a different department. But because I don't know I've never worked as a PM, I don't know what a PM actually does. So this is a great opportunity for me to learn about that. So yeah, where do I go from here? I don't know yet, but I feel like, you know, I've got 2 more years, I think. And I feel like whatever that I'm doing right now is not a waste at all. Like, there will come a time when all of this will make sense. Just like when I was working in Starbucks and going to all these events. It didn't make sense then, but it made sense when I got my current role. And it's going to make sense when I move into my next role, which I don't know where I'm going yet. And that's okay. I think I've always been that kind of person who's always trying to do the right thing or the perfect thing for a very long time. And having that opportunity to just drop all of that in 2022 and just completely, you know, leave it up to my efforts and God, basically, where it's like, I'm gonna stop doing whatever I was doing and I'm going to start from scratch and we'll see where it takes us. And that was so liberating, and that has helped me so much in the sense of being easier on myself. Before, I've always had to be really just try to do everything perfectly, and I've always beaten myself up so much on not doing well in school or at work. And I feel like my ego was tied a lot to how I was doing in my career/studies. And going through that in 2022, I mean, I'm not saying I don't have it anymore. I'm not saying I've completely changed as a person, but that really helped me be just a lot nicer to myself, and I just cut myself some slack now. You know, if I want to try something new, like a new hobby, before I would be like, oh, you have to be really good at it. Otherwise, like, why are you telling people about it, or why are you doing it? But now I'm like, that's fine. I want to try it, so I will. And if I don't like it, that's fine. I'll move on to something else. At least I've learned a new skill, or at least I've tried it. And that's okay. I think I'm okay, and I'm excited for what's to come. And I know it takes discipline and passion and also a lot of luck. Let's just put it that way. I feel like it's the job market now, regardless of what job it is, it's really tough. So it's really scary to just give up on something and hope for the best. And I feel like it has a lot to do with luck as well, because I feel like I was applying to hundreds of jobs and I only got one. You just need that one yes. Just keep trying, and if you really want it, you just keep doing it until you get it. And I'm still on that journey. I haven't gotten to what I want yet, and I'm working on it. And it's important to sort of think about the small wins rather than just the big wins. This is going to be a completely different topic as well. Speaking to my friend about it the other day. But, you know, those small wins will get you to that big win. And I wish I learned that a lot earlier. But I have now, and I'll keep pushing on. But yeah. I hope you guys were entertained, or hope this was useful. And I'll speak to you all again soon.